Well, Aaron, it's nice to spend some time with you today. We were just talking off air about, I was looking and watching your TEDx talk and some of the stories that you shared in that TEDx talk about technology and the greatest technology, and then really the hook that you've got with the audience there in that regard. I want to use that as the backdrop because anybody who knows you in your district, and hopefully the audience will see, is that you have, in my estimation, a great passion and energy. That's something that we shouldn't take for granted in that way, especially when we're looking at a model of superintendents that a lot of us came from, probably you and I came from when we were kids, where we didn't really know the superintendent very well. It was sort of this dark, shadowy figure in our community we just didn't really understand, right? Fair or foul in that regard. But I think we've turned the page, and there's a new era of superintendent out there that says, wow, we can really activate a lot of community enthusiasm that supports our students and our teachers. Tell me a little bit about is that just natural to you? Is that something you activate on a daily basis, that you want to provide that kind of energy and colorful personality to the role of superintendent?
Well, first off, thank you. I'm honored to be on this interview today, Rod. And, I guess the best way to put it is I've learned that purpose when you do something is very important. I've always been positive. I've always been optimistic. I mean, growing up, I was born in 71, graduated in 1990 from Goodrich High School in Fond du Lac, and I always thought people were like me. I mean, I thought this is just what it is. I went to the military and then to UW-Madison, and I was a psychology teacher. And what I really learned is that not until the mid-90s did we find out that positive psychology exists. And with positive psychology, now there is research that shows what I was thinking, what I was doing. There's a reason why I was successful in what I did. And what I'm excited about now, being 45, going on 46, 9 years as superintendent in this district in education for a while, is that you can replicate things when you know why they're successful. So for me, the way I have been has always been the way that I feel I've been. You can ask my family, ask my friends, ask the people that I've got to work for. But the killer part is now I know why what I'm doing is successful. And that's that research that we see from positive psychology that really hasn't come to the forefront until we saw Martin Seligman saying, you know what, I don't want to just study why people give up, but let's look at grit, let's look at resiliency. So yeah, I've been like this, but now the cool thing is before people sometimes thought, well, that guy's off his rocker a little bit. He's a little over the top. But now there's that data and that research to show that this is effective. This is an effective way to help people out and to make the future better.
Would you say that it infuses fun back into education in that way? I think that sometimes we've lost track of that we can actually have fun when we learn, and that it doesn't have to be something where, from pre-K or preschool, that when we transition into kindergarten and beyond, that all of a sudden we have to take fun away because we don't have time for that, or we don't have. Because I think of happiness in that way, right, and enthusiasm as something that can be fun and engaging. And we know engagement is an issue in education across the board, and not just here in the U.S., but abroad. So tell me a little bit about when you think about that in the regards of fun, when we think about happiness and the way in which our outlook may shift.
Yeah, and I think that fun or that rational optimism, that joy one feels, there's so many different emotional names that are tied to this positive emotional state, that physiological changes you. But the key thing is making that time. We have lost, and I won't say we, I think in a big part, we have not taken the time to understand just the power of creating moments so that you can have joy, so that you can have fun. For instance, it was Secretary's Day last spring. And what my business manager, I got all the ladies in our office is, at first it was going to be water guns because that'd be fun. But then I saw Nerf guns. So there'll be times in our office where I'll be like on the phone, and I'm hoping it doesn't happen now, but they'll come out with the Nerf guns and they'll just start pelting and stuff like that. I mean, but the thing is we get a lot done. I mean, research over and over shows that when you're in a positive emotional state, when you're having fun, when you're happy, you're more efficient and effective. It's not Aaron saying this. It's research that says over and over, people who are in a positive emotional state that are happy can get more done, or more effective. And people used to say, every day doesn't have to be Disney World. Why not? Why not? Why can't every day be the best that we possibly can make it? Do we deal with difficult things? Yeah. Matter of fact, when you have a positive environment that I have seen in our district, you actually get more problems because people are more apt to bring things out. People are more comfortable and they have this trust that,
it feels safer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's this misunderstanding that when you're in a happy environment, when you're in a place where, you really focus on the positive, that bad things don't happen. They happen all the time. It's just we have better tools to deal with them.
Tell me a little bit. I know you're a big proponent, and it's on the district's website, talking about the orange frog. Tell me a little bit about that. And I love that. Just as I know it's above your shoulder there, and you've got the pin on as well. I see on your jacket there. And tell me a little bit about the background of that and the impact of when you realized that this could be something that should be implemented district-wide. It wouldn't just be something that would be maybe within your household and the way in which you thought and raised your children and your family in that regard.
My sister-in-law, Chrissy, about 5-6 years ago, emailed me the TED Talk that Shawn Achor had done in Bloomington. And that just is like, whoa, he's got a book called The Happiness Advantage. This is insane. This is research that I've been looking at to have some backing for why what we're doing is working, or why I live my life the way that I do. So got that book. We shared it. We did some book studies. We actually painted a wall outside that's got all the tenets of the Happiness Advantage. And then it was about 2.5 years ago that I saw AASA, which is a Superintendents Association. They were partnering with this group called ITLN, International Thought Leaders Network. And what ITLN did is they figured out with Shawn Achor that most people don't read these books of research and data. They'll read like the first couple, 20, 30 pages, then they don't. So in order to operationalize the ideas and the research in the Happiness Advantage, they developed this parable called The Orange Frog, which is like a 60-page large print font book that has different characters that look and bring Shawn Achor's research of positive psychology alive, so it's understandable and it's something that can be really transcend in many different ways. And the cool thing about it too is it's the curriculum. So this idea of happiness is great, and how can we infuse it into a culture? But what I loved about the Orange Frog is it was actually great curriculum that we could replicate and we could utilize to infuse and teach staff, human beings, kids, how we can harness happiness. And when I saw that, I talked to my Board of Education. I said, hey guys, would you send me out to Oceanside, California in November for 3 days so I could get trained on happiness? Well, we had some conversations. And then to talk to the board and say, hey, and by the way, can we invest thousands of dollars in professional development that will really support happiness? And what they did is, as we've had those conversations, it works. It works. And what I love about the Orange Frog is it gives a common thought process, a common language, and it operationalizes the ideas of what it truly means to be in that positive emotional state where what you think and what you do matters. And I think it just was brilliant what Shawn Achor and ITLN did to take research and bring it alive and make it something spectacular. The cool thing about this is education's late to the game when it comes to happiness. They developed this originally for business. Business wanted to get a better bottom line. They wanted to have better customer service. They wanted to have, a better output of whatever they're making. And businesses saw that when people are unhappy and disengaged, they lose productivity. So you had businesses like Nationwide Insurance that invested in this, helped develop this. And then the leader, the people at ITLN and Shawn Achor said, this would probably be good for our kids too. So we're in about the second year now that the Orange Frog has really only been in education. We're just on the tip of the iceberg, and it's pretty exciting.
What do you see at the student level? Talk a little bit about at each level, kind of what you see. Like if I was to walk into your district, what would tell me, okay, in essence, the Orange Frog has been here, that there's something culturally going on? Almost like I can't tell exactly what it is, but boy, there's a feel, there's an energy, there's an approachability, there's a feel of safety in that regard.
Well, I think first off, physically how the environment is. I mean, we have thankful walls. We have places where we broadcast or where we put up that, that people are thankful and they can thank people in public. And you see those things. You also see an energy where people have manners and they're decent to each other and they take time to talk to each other, that they're welcoming. One of our big things is anybody who comes into our school district, the adults welcome and talk to them. The kids, we are currently right now working with our 9th graders infusing Orange Frog training, which is exciting. It's going to culminate on Friday. Actually, that's just the beginning of the next stage. And these kids are starting to really, really get it. A kid in 4th grade was doing a spelling test last year. And in our elementary school, what we did is we got a book for every family, kindergarten through 5th grade. So we called it One Pond, One Book. And they read that Orange Frog book at home with their families. And then there were some reading guides to talk about how to install the Orange Frog tenets into your life, how to make you happier, and what that would do. one of the kids in the Miss Coates' class on a third grade spelling test, they had different words, and one of the words was happiness, and she wrote happiness and said, it's a choice, and then said spark rules, smiley face, smiley face. So kids get it. And the coolest thing is that when adults really start to believe and understand that when they're in a better positive emotional state and happy, the kids respond. An adult's learning and teaching environment is that kid's learning environment. And the coolest thing that I've seen about this is that our staff, this isn't only about teaching them how to be better professionals and more effective teachers and support staff. It's about how to help them make their own marriages, their own relationships with their kids and friends even better. So the neat thing is you come in, there's that intangible thing there, but there's things that you'll see and you'll hear people say things that model this behavior.
Aaron, let's talk a little bit about, you touched briefly on it when we think about professional development, professional learning. Look, a lot of us, I know that this is not news to anybody, but PD has taken a rap, right or wrong over the years, and thankfully it has grown, I think, and evolved. It's still growing. It's still maturing in that way, so that it's not just by cattle, right, in that regard. When you talk about it that way with the Orange Frog and looking at happiness in that way, how does that then impact the way in which teachers are not only working together, but they're learning from one another?
Okay, so you look at education. I've been sitting in professional development, beginning of the year stuff. Hey, here's our initiative. And you look, this is it. Oh, we called it this before. Don't worry, this will pass too. Or here's another thing on your plates. The cool thing about happiness is it's not another thing. It's that technology. And defining technology is what makes us more efficient and effective. Being happy makes you better at teaching kids to read, at making you better at being a coach, at making you better at being a parent, at making you better at being a colleague, at taking the professional learning community that we're so entrenched in because we know that works to move the needle on student achievement and growth, makes those professional learning communities more efficient and effective. So happiness is the way that I really think about it is it's that conduit, it's that technology that allows other things to happen better and make them more efficient, which then creates more room so that we can get back to having fun, to have joy. Our country started to see a decrease in our achievement scores when No Child Left Behind came in the early 2000s. The key is reading and writing, literacy and math are very important. But those are just two things. There's so many other things. Kids are more in the test score. And when kids are well adjusted and happy and have grit and have resiliency, they can do so many other things that don't just rely on reading and math. So that's an exciting part about how this adds and makes things better, not harder or more.
Yeah, Aaron, let's close with this. Is this a leap to think that, no pun intended, thinking about a frog, is it a leap to think that potentially this could change? I mean, I think one of the challenges potentially that we have right now is that young people go through their education, and because of the way in which we couch teaching and learning today, it doesn't seem terribly appealing to them to say, well, gosh, I'd like to continue on now as an adult and work within the very confines of the environment that wasn't terribly happy for me, right? So we have a teacher shortage, we have all of these different challenges that we have sort of in front of us, and a lot of districts are facing them in real time. Do you think that this can impact it so that, a couple of generations from now that we're looking back and saying, you know what, we're having new people come into education, and it's because they had an experience where they could flourish under the guise of happiness in a way that was safe, that allowed them to explore and learn from one another? I mean, is that too far afield to say that? I just think that if we're enjoying our education, we might look up and say, my goodness, I might want to do this someday.
I want to bring in a gentleman by the name of Daniel Pink in motivation. And when you create, he's talked about when you do difficult cognitive tasks, the money really doesn't matter. We got to find a way that we compensate teachers and people in this profession well. But then it's about that autonomy. It's about that mastery. It's about that purpose. And all those things are fueled by happiness. They're all fueled by creating that environment where people really feel they make a difference and they're having that impact. And it's not just about testing. It's not just about what do I have to do in order to keep my job and go through this curriculum. It's about, I'm going to help these kids learn, but I'm going to teach them and have, somebody once said, and I love this quote, it's not so true that you can't take a horse to water and not make them drink. That's not so true, because you could put a salt lick out. And that's when we create an environment where people are having fun, they're going to be more engaged in what that environment is and see it as a place where it's safe to take risks, safe to grow, and really push and expand their potential.
Well, I'm sure, I have no doubt that it's a blast to be a part of your district. And I'm glad that the Nerf guns didn't come out. They spared us during the interview, but continued success and keep up the passion. It's just so needed in education. And I'm so glad we were able to connect. Thanks, Aaron.
Hey, thanks for taking the time. I really appreciate it.